Hello and welcome. I'm Robbie,
And I'm Jay.
and you're joining us for episode 16 of Generations Apart, the podcast where we chat about gaming and technology across the generations, sharing our perspectives on the past and our excitement for the future. On today's episode, we're talking about headphones, earbuds, and specifically what's popular at the moment and whether people favor convenience over features and sound quality. Here we go. Before we get into that, though, Jay, what's piqued your interest this week?
Thanks, Robbie. So this week, just to be different, it's generative AI, sort of.
That is different.
Specifically, Apple's take on generative AI. And in fact, when we did our episode of a couple of weeks back, we talked about Gen AI. And I think right at the end, I talked about my kind of intrigue as to what Apple might do with this, because of all the big tech companies, I guess they're the ones that have stayed the quietest. We haven't really heard from Apple as to what their take is. There's seemingly no public rush, at least, to kind of jump on this AI bandwagon to release their own kind of Google Bard or Chat GPT. They're staying very quiet and they're keeping, I guess, very much like they often do, keeping their thoughts to themselves. And we know that Apple often aren't the first to come out with technology or to launch new innovative tech. It's more about how they do it that tends to grab the market. So I thought this article was particularly interesting. So on Apple's second quarter earning calls on May 4th, and apologies, I'm going to read this just to make sure that I am factually correct. CEO Tim Cook was addressing the group, and as part of the earnings call, he was actually asked a question by an analyst called Sharon Cross from Credit Suisse for his take on generative AI overall, and more specifically how the technology will fit into Apple's products. He provided few details. So it says here he was keeping to Apple's long-standing strategy of retaining a high degree of security about its future efforts. He said, as you know, we don't comment on product roadmaps, which is particularly helpful. And though he declined to comment on future products, he did provide an insight into how Apple is thinking about AI and how it will fit into the company's products and services. He said, I do think it's very important to be deliberate and thoughtful in how you approach these things. And there's a number of issues that need to be sorted as it's being talked about in a number of different places. But the potential is certainly very interesting. He didn't elaborate on the specific issues, though there is no shortage of topics being discussed in the industry at large about the impact and risks of AI. So it seems like Apple are not prepared to say too much at the moment. They're no strangers to AI, as this article rightly points out. Should say this article is credit to venturebeat.com. So if you want to check that out, we'll share the link in the notes if you want to read the full thing. So they mentioned Apple, like I said, no strangers to AI. They've had Siri's voice assistant using NLP now across Apple's products for quite a while. It's deeply integrated into the iOS software, but obviously generative AI itself isn't something they've played around with yet. He did say we've made enormous progress integrating AI and machine learning throughout our ecosystem, and we've weaved it into products and features for many years. And he also noted that AI is present in features found on iPhones, Apple Watches today, including fall detection, crash detection, electrocardiogram functionality. He said these things are not only great features that they're saving people's lives. We view AI as huge and will continue weaving it into our products on a very thoughtful basis. And I thought that was the interesting bit at the end there, was that point around thoughtful. And I just wanted to call it out because I don't think you're going to see Apple come out with anything really big. I'd love them to come out at WWDC with something cool and funky or some sort of massive upgrade to Siri, but I feel like it's going to take some time. Apple obviously is so cautious from a privacy perspective. They're just not going to run out and do something that puts that at risk. They've built such a strong foundation around your personal privacy, your security, the way that they encrypt your data, the way that they process your data. I just can't. I guess, off the back of this and everything we've heard recently in the press, I just can't see them doing something dramatic, as much as I would like them to. And I thought this was just a really interesting article to pull up, as it's the first time Apple have really said anything publicly about Gen AI.
Yeah.
And they've really said nothing at all, other than we've got AI and we're being thoughtful. So they're not giving anything away, but I guess it's a wait and see. And there's a lot of talk still about their focus on VR and AR with this headset announcement looming. they probably don't want to dilute that by then having another conversation on the side about Gen AI, even if the rest of the industry is talking about it.
It's a very good point, and it's classic Apple fashion that they're not going to be the first to bring out anything, and they're not even going to be early in the game to do it. They're going to wait until it's absolutely right. And they have this, I guess, internal battle of they do want to be within the narrative of AI as well, but it's it's going to be harder and harder for them to keep up. I mean, Siri, if you compare that now to what we're seeing with any of the generative AI tools, it's a stark comparison now when you look at it. And so they're probably not liking that, so they needed to comment on it. But it'll be interesting when they do bring something out to enhance it in Apple fashion, with all the privacy and data integrity built in there as well, because that's something I think that a lot of the other tools I don't think 100% got right in all of them. So that's maybe why it's taken a bit longer for Apple to do it. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting you make the point about Apple tending to wait until things are right and then doing whatever they do, they tend to do it well. There are examples, I guess, of a number of their first product launches where that hasn't always rung true, but they've always iterated quickly to develop. The next iteration usually becomes the big one. I think iPad's a good example. The very first iPad was okay, but it was a little bit restricted, and it wasn't until the iPad 2, which came out 12 months later, that the iPad really started to shift, and they made a few small, subtle changes that made it a much more compelling purchase. Apple Watch, we talked about on our last episode. Excuse me. And likewise, Apple Watches were a bit poor out the gate. They did a job, but they didn't do a lot. And even iPhones, you could argue, although they started a revolution, when the iPhones first came out, they were quite limited. They didn't do a huge amount. They've
can even change the background.
Incredible. Yeah, they've moved on incredibly. There wasn't even an app store on the very first iPhone, so that's quite a change. But I am excited for the VR. I know this is kind of not the topic of the conversation, but I'm interested to see if Apple are readying themselves. What are they doing differently to the rest of the industry? Because you've got to imagine, with Apple's track record, they can't really afford to come out with an Oculus with an Apple logo on it, with Oculus. That's dated, isn't it? A Meta headset. Can't call it Oculus. But they can't come out with a Meta Quest Pro 3 equivalent with an Apple logo on, because at the price point they're bound to ask, they won't shift anything. There's got to be something Apple-like about this.
Yeah.
The most interesting rumour recently was that the battery will be separate from the headset.
I saw that.
You'll wear it,
in your back
which everyone
pocket.
kind of scoffed at. But actually, if you're thinking about making your headset infinitely more comfortable and usable for longer periods of time, then actually having a detachable, replaceable battery makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And actually taking that weight away from your head and transferring it to anywhere else on your body
it's a
makes
good
a lot
point.
of sense.
Because I know the Meta Quest Pro that you wore said was quite uncomfortable after even a short period of time, and that probably is due to the weight of the battery. But
it's more balanced than the Quest 2, but because obviously the battery is distributed. But the headband was really uncomfortable, so it didn't really make it any easier to wear for long periods.
Yeah.
PSVR 2 is far more comfortable, but then there's no battery in it. There's no processing unit in it in the same way that these other headsets do. But anyway, we're deviating. Apologies. I can talk. We'll have to wait until Apple announce something, and then we'll do another deep dive onto VR, because it's an area that's still evolving, even if the industry's not talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm still seeing announcements of headsets. There's still a lot of enthusiasts that I follow on social media who are doing interesting things and trying these new devices out. But of course, everyone's focus is elsewhere at the moment with generative AI. So there are developments happening, and perhaps it would be worth us looping back on that.
Definitely. And I know Apple have put a lot of emphasis and a lot of funding specifically in the AR VR, but I do wonder whether, and I think I've said this before, whether they're shooting themselves in the foot and how long it's taken for them to bring it out, because the hype is disappearing, I think, for a lot of the VR and AR stuff. And it's moved very swiftly on to Gen AI. I mean, Metaverse, I think, was even talked about quite a lot in the context of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as well at the time, which is also just completely dropped off the narrative in the mainstream media at the moment. So,
well, interestingly now, though, I'm seeing a lot of articles about how Gen AI is being used to help develop the metaverse, because they're able to use it to create experiences in ways that pre-generative AI you might not have been able to create. So whether it will go full circle and we'll be talking about how Gen AI is being applied to the metaverse in the next 6 months, who knows?
But that'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. I mean, Apple do have a track record of releasing devices that kind of capture the interest of the mass market. Again, we touched on this with our wearables episode, but the stuff that when you talk about people having these devices, Apple Watch seems like something that's kind of transcended the techies. My mother-in-law wears one. Whereas, now I'm not saying she'll go out and buy a VR headset, but if they go mainstream, she might do if there's a reason to do it.
Yeah.
But I guess someone's got to find that reason.
Definitely.
Anyway,
Definitely.
Robbie, what piqued your interest?
So it was actually, following our previous episode about 3D printing, it just so happens that one of the YouTubes I follow, one of my favorite channels on YouTube, Unbox Therapy, he had a video of him unboxing a 3D printer that claims to be 5 times faster. It's a filament one. So I know we drew the comparisons between filament and the other one. I've already forgotten the name of the other one.
Resin,
that's the one. The filament and the resin one. This is a filament one, but it claims to be 5 times faster than the traditional filament ones. And I know that was one of the major drawbacks of filament to resin, I think, right? Was the time. But also, the detail and things like that.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, they're actually similar, I think, in time. They just work slightly differently. So it'll be interesting to see how they're achieving this 5 times speed increase.
So there's a couple of things that are quite interesting about this one. First of all, it's made by Anker. They do chargers, they do battery packs. They're well known in the battery and charging space, but not so much in the 3D printing space. But this one looked really, really quite cool because it's got a few cool features. It's got an LCD display to go with it, and it's got preloaded things that you can print already built in there, and I think a bit of a store that you can tap into where people have uploaded their ones that work specifically well with this. A few of the examples that he's bringing up, you can still see the lines, so it's not as detailed, obviously, as the resin one still. But another couple of features are it has a camera built in, so you can monitor it remotely as it's being built, so that you can log it on your phone and see if it's got an error as it's printing. You can stop it remotely through your phone because you can connect to it through an app. And yeah, it's 5 times faster. I was enjoying watching some of them that have been created. So there's an example of one that's been brought up on screen if you're watching it on YouTube, is a fully movable kind of lizard dragon, and all that was printed as that appears on there. So it has like moving components, as we discussed in the last episode as well. I'm not sure how common that is, but there's a few examples they do of that in this episode on Unbox Therapy. I'll link the episode so you can check it out. It's worth taking a look at this one, as we were chatting about it last week anyway. But they've got a few interesting items in their store that have been uploaded by third parties, and he prints a bunny that he said he was going to give to his daughter, which also has fully movable arms and legs as well. But yeah, I just thought it was quite cool that it popped up on my newsfeed in YouTube shortly after we were chatting about it anyway.
The algorithm knows.
It does.
Something's listening, Robbie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting to see. I must admit, I haven't been following kind of developments in 3D printers for a little while since I bought mine, and kind of, I guess, scratched the itch and tried it out. I haven't really been following developments, as I don't plan to buy another one for a while.
Yeah.
Although I would quite like a filament printer because, as I mentioned in the previous episode, the drawbacks with the resin printer and the conditions you need and the environment you need to print in just makes it difficult.
And the smell
in the sort of studio to do that. Whereas a filament printer might be more practical, but I don't have a huge amount of use cases right now. But maybe in the future.
Yeah,
we'll keep that one in mind.
I think if I was going to get one, it'd probably be a filament one. I'm more likely to use it less for miniatures and intricate bits of printing. It's more going to be for component things, cool things that I find online that are going to be useful to have around the house. Maybe missing parts for anything I've got in the house as well. Could be quite useful for that stuff. But I just wanted to ask, because I've got it up on screen, you'll have experience from your resin printer. This bunny that he printed took 2 hours, which I think is quite a lot quicker than what
That's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty good going. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to tell exactly how big it is. I suppose the hand in the picture that you're showing on screen is useful from a reference. Yeah, I mean, I guess with the filament as well, because the difference with the resin printer, as we mentioned, is it's printed in layers, but the whole layer is printed at the same time. Whereas obviously in a filament printer, a nozzle's got to go around and effectively draw the image. Which takes that bit longer than being able to sort of just flash a screen that sets the resin. So, I mean, a couple of hours is pretty fast for that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's about the size, I'd say, of a standard mouse that you would a computer mouse.
I guess it's interesting, and I suppose it depends what you want to use it for, doesn't it? To come back to the conversation from my last episode, if you're looking to speedily prototype, then I guess speed is great. If what you're more interested in is quality, then actually the speed is probably less relevant.
True.
And you're probably prepared to wait. I guess it depends, doesn't it, whether you're time poor when it comes to these projects, or whether you're, like I said, whether you're looking to get something out quickly, or whether you're looking to, whether the quality is what you're after.
Yeah.
So I really think that probably depends on that. I'm less bothered about the camera that lets me track it, to be honest.
It does an auto time lapse for you as well. So at the end of every print, you can just look back to see what the time lapse was like.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'd probably just set a camera up and do that. I don't know.
True.
I don't know if I'm going to interject as soon as there's an error. But it's a nice feature to have. I'm sure someone will find that useful.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in the speed and the quality side than I am, having a camera that tracks it.
Oh, the other cool feature I think it had was an auto leveler. I suspect that might be a pretty big issue.
It's getting more common. Yeah, that's more common in modern printers now. Although it is sold as a feature by most new ones, because it's for those people who kind of invested early doors. They know how painful that can be. I have to level mine to a degree, but in a resin printer it's slightly different. It's a bit easier to do.
Yeah. Cool. Well, there you go. That was my piqued interest this week.
I like it.
So, on today's episode, we're chatting about headphones, and the structure of this episode is going to basically go through what we have currently in terms of headphones. And I think, Jay, you've got quite a bit bigger a collection than me, so we might spend a bit of time
more than I realised, to be honest, Robbie. When you put this down as an idea, I was like, what have we got to talk about with headphones? And then I looked at my collection and went, oh, I've got quite a lot of headphones.
Yeah.
Yes.
So before we get into that, we're just going to summarize the other elements that we're going to go to. And I think the main topic that we're going to chat about if we get time later is, the convenience aspect versus the actual quality of the headphones. And I'm specifically pointing at the likes of AirPods, which when they first came out, widely adopted, but not necessarily the best technology or the best sound quality on the market, but just the convenience of the fact that Apple users had that added ecosystem that they could invest in and have the convenience of working it with all their other devices. So we'll chat a bit about that as well after we've gone through our stuff. And then if we've got time at the end, a few of the gimmick items that I've seen online about headphones as well. But Jay, what's in your collection? Why don't we talk about your stuff first? Because mine's not going to be much.
Okay, so I made a little pile next to me. So again, if you're on YouTube, I'll try and hold them up for the camera as best I can, but I'll describe them for those who are listening along. Where do you want me to start, Robbie? Should I go to the oldest pair as far as I think?
Start with the best tech. I think that would be the best. Or the best. Maybe not necessarily the most expensive, but the ones that you use the most, the best. I don't know. Which ones would you rate the best?
Right. So I should point out, these I've got a number of headphones here, but they all generally serve a different purpose. A few have replaced others in that set, but most have very specific use cases. So I will go, I guess, for my most commonly used, it would be, as you just described them, the AirPods Pro.
Nice.
So I had the original AirPods. I use them heavily for commuting. I'll be honest, I don't really use headphones around the house because I've got kids and I can't really afford to have my kind of hearing shut off from them. I need to know what they're doing, if they're shouting for my help or, whatever. I need to be aware. So I don't tend to wear headphones around the house. Maybe if I'm doing jobs. So, I might put them on to mow the lawn or something exciting like that. Or more often than not, it's when I'm going for a walk or, it might be exercise. So the AirPods Pro, which simply is an upgrade to the AirPods. I love my AirPods. Batteries had started to wane. I'd had them for a few years. So I upgraded to the Pro. Of course, the Pro is slightly smaller. They've got a slightly better battery life, but not by much, to be honest. They obviously have noise cancelling features, which is great. But of course, the biggest selling point for me as an Apple fanboy, someone who's got a phone and an iPad and a MacBook, is that they seamlessly work across all the devices, including my watch. So once you link that to your account, these headphones are available across all 4 of those devices at any time without the need to kind of re-sync them from a Bluetooth perspective or anything painful like that. You just pick them up with whatever device you want to use and off you go. I still use these the most, even though, as we'll talk about shortly, I have bought newer, more expensive headphones that I don't use as much. And to be honest, the reason that I use these more than anything else is pure convenience.
Yeah.
They are super small. The battery life, including the case, is good enough for what I use them for. My commute's somewhere in the region of about an hour a day when I go into the office. If I go to London or something, it's a couple of hours. But they will more than comfortably do that journey. Pop them back in the case. They're charged up, ready to go when I go home again. I have a small, like a key case. So they're on my keys. They're with me all the time. And I think that's the key thing. A bit like photography, where they often say the best camera is the one they have with you. And often a lot of people now use their phone because they've almost always got it with them. These headphones tend to be the go-to because they're almost always with me, because I've almost always got my car keys and my house keys, in which case they're there.
Interesting.
So AirPods Pro are my kind of go-to at the moment, and I'm really happy with them. I will say I've got a slightly weird issue with one of the earbuds. When you first put it in, it crackles quite uncomfortably loudly. I have been too lazy to take it back to Apple and get them properly checked, but I suspect there's probably something. I think it's probably because they've been dropped at some point. But otherwise, they work very well. They stay in my ears generally. They're not great for me for exercise. Too much detail here, but I'm a slightly oily man, and therefore I find that they kind of slip in and out of my ears a bit when I'm trying to exercise. So they're not quite as they don't stay in as firmly as I'd like, and they're a bit fiddly then to constantly be kind of pressing them back in while I'm running or something like that.
Yeah.
So they're not as good for exercise. They're fine at the gym for kind of like you're just wandering around the gym and doing stuff. But if you're moving too much, running specifically, they tend to fall out, or they try to, and I'm constantly aware of that.
And so you had the original AirPods as well before that. And so what made you upgrade? Was it because they're very different form factors as well. The original AirPods had
new tech, Robbie. I'm not going to pretend otherwise.
That would be the same.
It was just the lure of new tech. Yeah. There's a couple of things. So first of all, the noise cancellation on these is the previous AirPods don't have noise cancellation. They're just they were just like wireless versions of the AirPod. The headphones that would typically used to come bundled with your phone.
Earpods.
The earpods, whatever they were called.
I think so.
They're basically just wireless versions of those, the AirPods. Whereas these have got the noise cancelling, the kind of in-ear bit. There's a couple of things that I like about them that make them better than the AirPods. There's also a couple of things that I think make them worse. So I used to like on the original AirPods the ability to just tap the headset to make it skip forward, back, play, and all that kind of good stuff. With these, you can't tap them. There's like a small clickable button on the stalk, which means you have to kind of grab the headphones. Instead of being able to sort of casually tap your ear, you have to grip it, which I find when I'm kind of running or moving, there's an inclination to kind of pull it a little bit. So I don't like that as much. And I think it's ironic that they put the button on the stalk and then shorten the stalk in the previous design. It would have been easier, arguably, on the first generation to click the stalk, whereas they shrunk it on the second one, which makes it harder to grip with bigger hands.
And the sound quality?
I should say, and preface this whole episode, I am not an audiophile. So I am not a really big music consumer. I don't buy these things because they sound a certain way. I do listen to music on them as well as podcasts, but I tend to just kind of pick random playlists or a selection of my favourites mix that Apple serves at once a week, and I'm pretty satisfied with that, really. So I don't measure too hard the sort of sound quality. I don't think they sound bad. So to me, I guess that's okay. Yeah. But I've not compared them to anything else. I bought them for the convenience of the software, the functionality, not because they had a particularly superior sound quality to product X. There was no product X. It was these are Apple. I'm buying the Apple, which for good or bad is the way I choose to purchase these things. I had got other headphones prior to that, which I can touch on, but I only had one other in-ear example, which I can give you.
Because I suppose that's an interesting one that obviously there's different form factors for headphones as well, the in-ears and then the over-ear, I suppose the biggest difference. Although I've got an example of a very different form factor later, perhaps when we get a chance to talk about that.
Pre-AirPods, I had, and I still use these, the Power Beats. So these are the kind of over-ear, in-ear, but with the sort of ear hook. Yes. And I bought these specifically for sort of working out. They weren't cheap at the time. I think since they've cut the cord and they're now fully wireless. I mean, obviously they're Bluetooth anyway.
Power Beats Pros
this wired's just to connect one headphone to another. But so they are Bluetooth, but I think they're now fully cut from each other and they work independently. They're great. They still work. I use them more for exercise because they stay in my ears better. So I still use them, albeit very, very sort of infrequently. I'm going to start using them more because I'm back in training to run again, which I've not done for quite a few years.
Yeah.
But back when I used to be more regular with the fitness and the running, those were my preferred headphones because they were very, very well attached. You know, this little hook around the back of the ear. Quality of the sound is very good. At the time, I'll be honest, Apple had bought Beats by that point.
Yeah.
So they were basically an Apple product by then.
Yeah. Even has the H1 chip inside, isn't it? The Beats now.
Yeah, I don't think these ones probably did because these are quite old at this point and they predate the AirPods, so they've got to be. I definitely bought them in the last sort of 6 or 7 years, but it was probably right at the front end of that 6 or 7 years. They're quite old. But those are the only other sort of small form factor headphones that I've got here to talk about. Everything else are big over ear kind of chunky monkeys.
Yeah.
But like I said, these are my go-to.
Oh,
how about you? What's your equivalent?
My equivalent go-to are, well, so I have not many headphones at all to choose from really, and I am actually in the market at the moment for some earbuds specifically for working out because I don't have anything at the moment, and running without anything in your ears is, or listening to any music is actually quite painful, I think. But so my go-to at the moment for listening to audio is I have the Sony, and a horrific naming convention, Sony WH-1000 XM4s. Everyone just calls them the XM4s, but it's the version 4s of their over-ear, their flagship noise-cancelling headphones. And I think they brought out another version now, so I bought these a couple of years ago. And when I first got these, they're obviously quite large. I wasn't used to over-ear headphones before this. I used to have in-ear buds, and it wasn't wireless neither. So this blew my mind when I first got these. The fact that, first of all, they were wireless. I hadn't really had wireless earbuds before that, and they are huge, but also very comfortable. They've got a very plush kind of squishiness about their ear cups. And the noise cancellation as well also blew my mind. So there was lots to like this when I first got them, and I still use them now. They're my daily drivers for listening to audio. But because they're over ear, if you're doing any kind of movement, I've mowed the lawn with these, and it gets a bit gross inside. So I'm looking for something that's earbuds instead, something that's more used to exercising or doesn't get sweaty or anything as you're using them. But really, really fantastic audio quality as well in these. Another reason why I chose them. It actually convinced me to change my streaming service. I kind of fell for it. Their marketing when you bought these was it gives you I think 3-month trial for Deezer high-res audio, which is an alternative streaming service. I was on Spotify at the time. And I stuck with Deezer even after the trial because the sound quality was ridiculous, and I was doing like side-by-side comparisons. And I know not many other people would be able to tell a difference, but I always listen out for it. So I can hear it now. Once you hear it, I feel like it's hard to go back. So I've now switched to Apple Music.
It's the hearing equivalent to trying to go from a 4K TV back to your HD or your standard definition, isn't it? Once you've heard the high quality, anything less doesn't sound as good.
Absolutely right. It's like anything, yeah. Like you say, the resolution of the screen from 4K to HD, or even the refresh rate of a screen. If you're going from, a phone that's got a high refresh rate, going to a phone that's not, you can really tell the difference because it's it's reacting to your finger and everything. So once you've tried it, it's really hard to go back. So yeah, truly fantastic headphones. Can't recommend them enough. And to be honest, they're much cheaper now because it's the generation before, and still fantastic. They still work really, really well. But these are my daily drivers. I'm not going to say them again. The Sony XM4s.
So as a man who is now gradually falling for the Apple dark side, are you tempted at all to try Apple Music and their lossless music? And have you experienced spatial audio?
So I have just recently switched over to Apple Music, and the reason is, I know. So I wasn't Deezer beforehand. The reason I switched it over is, for some reason, the Deezer app on Apple is rubbish. Crashed all the time. Really, really strange. But also, I got the iCloud subscription, and it's not too far away from the basic Apple One subscription where you get Apple Music with it anyway. So I was spending, too much on both Deezer and the iCloud storage, so I just decided to combine it all in one. And then I also knew that Apple did high-res audio as well, so there wasn't any loss in the audio quality between services. So I am on Apple Music now. You'll be glad to know, Jay.
So do your headphones support spatial audio?
They actually do. I haven't tried it yet, though, on Apple Music
It's
at
quite
least.
good fun. So I've tried it both with my AirPods Pro and another headset I'll talk about in a minute. But so spatial audio, for those who don't know, is it attempts to create a sort of 360 environment for the audio that you're listening to. So there's two ways you can use it. There's kind of head tracked spatial audio, or there's non-head tracked spatial audio. And if it's head tracked, what it basically tries to do is put the vocalist's tones in such a way that they sound like they're in front of you.
Yeah.
And then the music kind of surrounds you. Whereas if you use the non-head tracking and you allow yourself to sort of, as you're walking around or changing direction, for the audio not to follow you, essentially, then what will happen is the vocalist will move around you. So as you're sort of turning your head away from the vocalist, they sound like they're behind you or to one side of you, and then kind of as you move back, they're kind of back in your picture again. It's quite cool.
Yeah.
I don't use it a huge amount, I'll be honest, but it is quite good fun when it's on, and when you realise, it's one of those things, like you said, when you turn it off, you go, oh, that sounds really flat now. I hadn't realised I'd gotten kind of used to this more immersive sound that's all around you. But it is good. It is good. It works better with the well, let's talk about them now. I guess my most recent and most expensive headphones are the AirPods Pro Max.
Pro Max.
So I bought these on a whim, I'll be honest. They haven't supplanted the AirPods Pro purely because they're just not as convenient. So again, I'm kind of holding them on camera. They're like a little handbag.
They're quite large, aren't they?
Yeah, they are quite large. I mean, they're not much larger than my other headphones that I've got here that we'll kind of work through. They're weighty. They feel great. They feel really premium, like you'd expect they would for the price and what Apple and they're Apple made. They're easy to use. I've got quite a large head, so it may not come across on the camera, but I've got a larger than normal head. And this has been medically proven by doctors. When I think I told you before, Robbie, when I had my little girl when she was 2, she had quite a large head, and we were a bit concerned about it because she was premature. We didn't know whether there was a problem, and it actually turns out when we were checking with the doctor at kind of a final check-in, we asked him. We said, is there anything we should be worried about? She had quite a large head. It's not abnormally large. I should point that out. She doesn't look weird. It's just big. In terms of hats, we had to buy much bigger hats for her head than you would expect for a baby of her age. The doctor measured her head. He said it's in the 95th percentile. We're like, that sounds quite high. He said, has mom and dad ever had their heads checked? We were like, well, no. So he measured my wife's head, and he said, you've got the head of a 14-year-old girl, which is very small. It was quite funny. He then measured my head and said it's off the scale. And he literally wrote it in her notes. It says in her child notes, no concern with head size, dad's head's off the scale. It's literally written by a doctor in a medical document. So
That's
I must
amazing.
Admit, when it comes to headsets and anything that goes on my head, and this is the reason why things like the Quest Pro were a bit of a struggle. I have got a larger than normal head. So I find with these, and having a bald head, when I wear them for a long period and take them off, I get these really weird kind of imprints around my ear.
Yeah.
Where the sort of, because they are quite fitted, I guess to close out the sound. And they're not uncomfortable to wear because they've got this very soft cushioned kind of mesh. But it leaves this like subtle imprint in my head for like 5 or 10 minutes or more afterwards, while I guess my skin readjusts to not having them on. They are really comfortable. They do a really great job of cancelling the sound around you out, which is, I think it's really weird when you experience that for the first time. I'm sure you got it with your Sonys. When you put it on and you turn it on, the way it just cuts out all the sound around you.
Yeah.
I must admit there was once, and it's a different pair of headphones, but I was doing my commute and I'd gotten to work. I was walking up to the building, and then I took them off. I went to walk in, and I got this almost like this shock. I kind of shot back and was like, "What the?" And all of a sudden, I could hear, which had completely passed me by, construction workers in the road drilling the road. None of that noise had leaked in. I took these headphones off, and all of a sudden, I got all the sound around me, and it really took me by surprise. To put me I remember that experience now. But they are good headphones. Like I said, they haven't taken the place of the Pros because they're just a bit bulky. And like you, I've got a few over-ear headphones here, and every time I've bought a pair and started to wear them, I get a little bit self-conscious about how I look. do I look a bit silly in these massive headphones? And I know everyone wears them now, and they're designed to be fashionable and all that good stuff. I just can't help feeling a little bit exposed when I'm wearing them, or a little bit like I'm being looked at.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
No,
so I
don't
don't know.
that.
I get a bit uncomfortable with it. So I don't know. I mean, more often than not, it's fine. Like when I get them on, it's not a problem. But I tend to steer towards the more low profile headphones because they just feel a little bit more subtle, I guess.
And I've seen the AirPods Pro Max before. I don't think I've worn them, but they are quite large, even for over-ear headphones, I think.
Well, I guess if I compare them, so if I put them up side by side, so just for the camera's purposes and yours, that's them side by side. So there's the ear cups kind of side by side.
Yeah,
you can kind of see it's not that much bigger.
Well, the other thing about them is they're metal as well, right? So I've heard they're quite heavy.
They've got a bit of weight to them, certainly.
Yeah.
But it's not uncomfortable because the band on the head uses like a mesh.
Yeah.
To suspend them. So they're pretty comfortable. What I will say, and this is an argument for me at least, for the earbuds, is that what I like about the AirPods and the AirPods Pro is that for commuting specifically, if I take one ear out, they stop playing. So if I need to listen to something like an announcement, or I want to go and talk to someone, order a coffee, I can take one ear out, make my order, pop them back in, and the music carries on playing from where I left off, or the podcast carries on playing from where I left off. That's quite a nice convenience. It's a small thing, but it's a novelty, and I genuinely find it very useful. The AirPods Max do something similar, but of course you can't just take one ear out because the whole thing's strapped to your head. So you've kind of got to move one of the headphones forward or backwards, or sort of lift it off.
on your eye.
Yeah, it will then stop the audio. So as soon as it detects one of the earpods, I guess one of the earphones has been lifted, it stops the audio, which is great. The slight downside to that is, and you mentioned this with your headphones, when you're wearing over the ear headphones, you do tend to find for after long periods of wear that your ears get quite warm, and get a little bit irritated. So like if you lift the headphone just to kind of just have a scratch, for want of a better word, but just to adjust it, it stops the audio for a minute or for a moment, and it kind of restarts when you close the earbud, and you weren't really intending to take it off. You were just kind of, it was a comfort thing. So, for me, they are great headphones. I am increasingly using them, but the AirPods Pro haven't been supplanted.
One thing to add, I know you mentioned the stopping to chat to someone. Sony's approach to this is actually quite interesting. They've got a few features to help out with that exact scenario. So in their software, they have something called Speak to Chat. I think it's called Speak to Chat, which is, it listens, it's got, these noise cancelling headphones typically always have tons of microphones, not just to pick up your voice, but also to pick up the environment around you as well, so it can actually cancel out the environment noise. But it uses these mics cleverly to be able to tell when you're specifically speaking compared to anyone else that's nearby. And when it detects your voice, it lowers the volume, it puts on ambient mode, which is basically feeding through the outside world.
Yeah, that's clever.
In that. So it picks up your voice. As soon as you start speaking, pauses the music, picks up the outside world so you can speak to whoever you happen to be speaking to. Now, I've had mixed success with that. Sometimes it happens when I don't want it to. You can toggle the sensitivity. I think it's got 3 levels of sensitivity. But you can also toggle how long it pauses the music for. So where this doesn't work is if you say hi to someone and then they go on a monologue for longer than 30 seconds where you don't speak, then it'll reintroduce the music again, and you'll have to make a sudden noise to make sure that you can still hear them again. So mixed success with it. The other feature that it's got, which I think is really useful, and I use this all the time, is when you put your palm on the right ear cup, it pauses the music, and you can also hear the outside world. So if you imagine just touching your ear, like if anyone's watching on YouTube, I'm just grabbing my ear cup.
Then, no?
Yeah, looking like a DJ. Like I've got the decks in the other hand, my hand on the ear. You do that, it pauses the music and feeds in the outside world as well. And then once you're done, you take your hand off, and it goes straight back to your music. So really great features for actually still being present in the world. If you need to speak to someone for whatever reason. Also, you can just toggle ambient mode on all the time, so you can still hear everything around you whilst you're still wearing the headphones, which I use quite often if I'm in the house and I'm cleaning, and Christina might shout for my name or something, and I can still hear her.
Yeah, I must admit I do like ambient mode on the Apple headsets. They both got it, and it's a nice way to, when you walk around the park, just to kind of bring in a bit of nature. It sounds really silly, but I used to go for walks during COVID around our local area. we're quite lucky to have a bit of park area by us, and it's quite nice to be able to put the headphones on, be in your own world, but also have just a little bit of nature around you. You could hear the birds, you could kind of hear the wind blowing through the trees. It was a really weird experience, but it was a nice one. And it was, I guess, even just from a safety perspective, if you're on your own, just to have awareness of what's going on around you rather than being completely isolated.
Yeah.
There's definitely some value there. I was going to take you back a little bit, Robbie. I thought we've gone from what I wear now to, I guess, the oldest pair that I still own. Obviously, I've had headphones prior to this, but I'll be honest and say I probably never owned any headphones I gave a monkeys about prior to these, because everything prior would have been things that just came with the device that I owned.
Yeah.
And I used to have and was quite comfortable with my earpods that came with my old iPod. Was it iPod 3rd generation or something like that from years ago? MP3 players, CD players in the past, even cassette players, Robbie, which I'm sure you never owned.
I did actually.
Did you? I am surprised. Yeah. I guess I've always had headphones, but these are the first time I ever bought headphones specifically for the headphones, if that makes sense. Normally I would have just had the headphones that got bundled with the thing that I bought and thought nothing of it. So these were the Beats Mixer series. At the time, this was when Beats by Dre were like they were the hot thing, and they hadn't at this point been purchased by Apple, I don't think, or they were very, very close. The Beats by Dre. These were kind of next level up from the default version you could buy. These were the mixer ones. These were actually supposedly marketed towards DJs. Although
really?
I'm sure that's a load of bull. They fold up really nicely. So they would sort of fold up quite small. They were quite easy to pack. Getting down to sort of quite a small form factor. What I like about them is that they have a headphone jack on either ear, so you can wear the cable on whichever side you prefer.
Cool.
So when you were connecting them, you could choose where you wanted the cable to dangle from. And of course, this goes back to the days where you had to plug your headphones in.
Yeah.
Before Apple and others did away with the headphone jack. I actually bought these for my 30th birthday. I had them around my 30th birthday. That's 10 years ago now.
Wow.
For those who are listening, keeping track, I just celebrated turning 40, so quite a long time ago. And I was on a special birthday trip to New York, and I bought them from the New York Apple store, as well as at the time the iPad Mini 2, I think was my tech purchase at the time. And I honestly went back and forth on these. I didn't think I wanted Beats. In my head, Beats were what the so-called cool kids wanted. I wanted the techies headphones. So I went through all the different headphones that Apple had in their store at the time. No science to this. I just tried them on. I tried them. I listened to some music. I decided what I liked the sound of. I was convinced I was going to buy a pair of Bose.
Yeah.
It wasn't a model in mind. I was just thought Bose. Bose is music. In my head, that's the brand that had made its way into my mind. But I tried these on. And I went back and forth, tried to talk myself out of it, but I couldn't take myself away from the fact that in my mind, these sounded better than the Bose that I was comparing them to.
Interesting.
And again, this is personal taste, isn't it? What does sounding better mean? Well, I think to me, and you kind of articulated this when we were talking about this in preparation for the episode, that Beats are synonymous with being quite bassy.
Yeah.
And I think what I liked was the bass, was that level of bass that I was getting from these when I was sampling the audio. But perhaps, my premature, sort of primitive ear couldn't really differentiate or understand what I liked. And I'm not into music. I don't make music. I can't play music. We should say that you are all of those things and I am not. So to me, it was just what I liked. It was a pure taste thing.
Yeah.
And I bought these. I've had them for 10 years. I still use them sparingly now. Olivia's borrowed them in the past. My daughter. I've used them for a number of things actually, and for a long time they were my gaming headset.
Oh, really?
Because they're quite pricey. And before I wasn't really into buying sort of gaming dedicated headsets. So I used to wear these, and I had a small converter headset that would give me the microphone capabilities that these lack, and that would then convert the audio appropriately to connect to the bottom of the Xbox controller back in the day. So I use these a lot. These have had maybe second to the AirPods Pro.
Yeah.
These have probably had the most use in the pile that I've got here.
And that's
and they're still going now.
They're slightly different form factor as well to the other over-ear headphones we talked about, because there's a difference between over-ear and on-ear, and they look like on-ear.
These are on-ear. Yeah, these are very much on-ear. They don't encompass your ears completely. They do a fairly good job of covering your ears, but they don't go around your ear, so they're not creating that seal. They're not trying to be noise cancelling specifically. And I guess, again, they were marketed for DJ, so they had this little novelty kind of hinge, so you could hinge
so you
one
could hook
headphone
it up.
up.
Yeah.
So you could wear it for the
Excellent.
benefit of YouTube. You could kind of have it in some sort of weird, kind of on your face, but
DJ
not on your
comfy.
ear position, but still wear the whole thing comfortably. I don't know whether anyone ever actually did that, but
Amazing.
it was useful for me when I was kind of at home and having to keep an ear out for what was going on in the house, but still playing gaming. What they didn't do, and I don't understand the technical side of this, but it was they didn't give me the 360 kind of 3D perception in gaming that you would want. So when I was playing, first person shooters, etc., I didn't get the footsteps of the people and where they were around me. I couldn't locate them based on sound.
Okay.
So for whatever reason, they didn't provide me that. So when I upgraded, which I'll talk about shortly, that blew my mind when I put on a proper pair of headset that would sort of show me where the footsteps were. And I'd had a friend who'd been preaching for years about the quality of these things in shooters. I used to go, yeah, whatever. How good could that really be? Until I wore them and went, oh my God.
Turns you into
it
a
makes
pro
such
gamer
a difference.
immediately.
Yeah. So,
How did you find
so
the
those are my
comfort
oldest standing headphones.
How do you find comfort for on-ear? I've had really bad experiences with that. I never find on-ear comfortable.
Really?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say these are great. They're not heavy. There's a nice amount of flex. Like I said, I wore these a lot. The inconvenience, to be honest, was the cable.
Oh, right.
So taking them out for a walk and stuff, I didn't like having the trailing cable. I never thought about getting rid of it because wireless wasn't really a thing then, but it just annoyed me. So, and it's why I honestly didn't used to wear a lot of headphones at all.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I didn't listen to a lot of music at all. Pre-streaming, I have very, very. I mean, there was probably a period where LimeWire featured as a tool in my arsenal when it came to music. But again, I wasn't using it heavily for that because I didn't really.
Back when you're an Android
bothered
user.
about music. Yeah, back when I was an Android user, I didn't really like music. Not like music. That sounds really stupid. There's no way to articulate this without sounding daft. But I guess I just wasn't that bothered. Like I liked what I liked, and I was happy with the radio. But I didn't buy music. I didn't get obsessed with bands. I didn't go and watch a lot of music. So it wasn't until streaming made, for I guess a reasonable price, vast libraries of music accessible that I really listened to a lot of music. So I think streaming and kind of wireless headsets have brought music to me in a way that I maybe wouldn't have bothered with it 10 years ago. So anyway.
Well,
Beats by Dre mixers, whatever they're called.
And I think they've gone on now to a very similar setup and style. The Beats Solo, I think, is the equivalent to them now, whether it's the on-ear headphones. I could be wrong on that in like the equivalency, but they certainly look the
solos. I think the solos were what those. So I mentioned there was kind of a mass market pair of headphones. I think the solos are what they've evolved into.
Oh, really?
These were like a secondary line. They were slightly more expensive and considered to be sort of like more specialist. But they're just the ones that I liked, which is why I bought them.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry, I think there might be an up-to-date version of the mixers. Cool. Well, so I've only got one other pair of headphones that I can talk about, and it's the ones that I'm wearing right now. These are my, I guess, studio headphones. I actually got them recently. I got them over Christmas, but they are. Give me 2 seconds because I can't remember the name, but they are written on the side. So bear with me a second. They are the Biodynamics DT 770 Pro.
You like memorable names for your tech, don't you?
I don't know what it is about these tech companies. They love
you like numbers and letters.
Names.
Give me the numbers and the letters.
770 Pro, that's what we'll go with. They've got a bunch of different headphones as well, and they're all studio focusing. So there's the 770s. I think they've got 790s. I think they've got 990s. They've got tons of different versions, all with different features and different things that they're aiming for. So these are closed back. So in the studio headphones world, there's two main versions of the back of the headphone. There's open back and closed back. Closed back is just the standard headphones where there is a cap. There's no way that audio can escape out of there. But there's open back, which is quite popular for studio headphones as well. I've never really used them myself, so I couldn't tell you what the benefits are, but it's another version of them. But they're very different to normal headphones because they're not trying to be... I guess the main thing they're trying to be is flat, completely flat in terms of the response to music. And they're not trying to be exciting or something fun to listen to, which sounds... I'm not really selling it, but studio headphones, the purpose of them is to have a completely flat EQ so that it's not high in the bass, not low in the bass. It's completely flat. It's not high in the mids or the treble. It's completely flat all across the board. And the reason is when you're mixing music, you want to hear the audio as completely flat as you can, so that when it hits, at the average Joe earphones, that it's going to be the same response that all other music has, which is it's mixed flat, so that when the manufacturers of these headphones that have their signature, what they want their purchasers of their headphones to listen to, they get the same response. So you mentioned Bose before being really bass heavy. You'd still produce the music super flat, not that bassy, so that when they do land in Beats headphones, when they land in Beats headphones, you still get that bass response. Otherwise, you imagine mixing music with Beats headphones, you would drop the bass because it would already be too high. So that when you get to all the other headphones, it might sound fine in Beats headphones because that's what you mixed it in. But all other headphones, there would be absolutely no bass because the Beats kind of overcompensates the bass for you. So that's what these are for. Super flat response. I use them for podcasting as well because you can hear audio really, really clearly. And I also use it, I think I use it for gaming as well, just because, again, you hear that audio extremely clearly. Worth noting.
It's interesting because obviously, we've said before, you're the audio guy, I'm the visual guy. And as you're describing that, it sounds very similar to the audio equivalent of what I would explain as sort of camera raw when you're messing with photographs. So I remember getting my first camera that shot in RAW. And if you've never used, if you're not into digital photography, and if we all are now, I guess, with our smartphones, but no one with your smartphone, like you described, instead of Beats putting their twist on it, your iPhone or your Samsung or whatever is putting its twist on it when it processes your image and creates that JPEG, and it's giving you the color pop, the contrast, that good stuff that you can then go and edit. But out of the camera, without any of that applied, your camera raw, your raw photograph looks really flat and boring. And I remember taking these pictures of this new camera that was going to unlock raw for me, and I thought, I'm going to get the best pictures ever. Took these pictures, took them off the camera, and I was convinced the camera was broken. I was like, what is wrong with these pictures? They look terrible. They look washed out, and they were much larger file size, which is, you expect because it's raw, unprocessed, and uncompressed. But they looked awful. They were just washed out. And I guess that's kind of, not that you're saying the audio is awful, but that's what you're describing, isn't it? It's washing away any additional settings. It's literally as the noise was captured, and then and as you're hearing it, and then you can apply the specialist sounds and effects that you want the audio to have, that the listener then experiences. And that's how camera raw works for visual, and likewise with film. When you watch DVDs that show you kind of behind the scenes in movies, or they show you footage that didn't make it into the film, if that hasn't been edited, it often looks a bit flat and a bit naff. And it's because it hasn't been color corrected, it hasn't been tweaked for cinema. And same thing with pictures. So am I describing that right? Is that how you would describe the kind of what your audio experience?
Absolutely. And you touched on it there. I think the other visual comparison is the reference monitors, where they're 100% color calibrated, so that if you're editing photos on these reference monitors, they're going to be super, super accurate because they've the colors are super accurate on there. That's kind of what these headphones are like. The audio that you hear in there is super, super accurate and super reflective of what you recorded or what you're listening to.
It's funny, I've got a device that does that for your screen, that from back in the day when I used to do more photography. And it was like a spider, I think it's called, and you'd hang it over your screen. And it would measure your display, and then it would work out what it should look like, and then it would adjust your settings for you. And it used to make it look so weird, because you go from this kind of high gloss, kind of high punchy, high saturation, and then all of a sudden it would just go bump, really flat looking, and you go, oh, that doesn't look nice. I don't want my monitor to look like that. That's not appealing. But then you like you said, you need that, because then you are truly experiencing the image. In your description, the audio as it is, without any of those additional layers of change that you're applying, albeit unintentionally, without realizing it. It's really funny to see your monitor change when you do that. But yeah, okay. And you're really into your music, as your background suggests, for anyone who's seen you on stream or in the YouTube videos. What do you do with them? What's the sort of workflow look like with those headphones?
Sure. So I have them. So actually, I've got two things to help me with this. I've got these headphones, but before I had these headphones, I've also got two mounted speakers, and these they're called monitors, and they do a very similar thing. They have a very flat response, but they've got a big bass cone and then a big like a tweeter at the top as well. So two sets of audio that's coming out of each speaker. And I do both. When I'm mixing audio, recording audio, I'll try it with the headphones, and then I'll try it with the speakers, and generally try and get a sense of what it's sounding like overall. Actually did that earlier today. And it's amazing the difference you hear, because you hear a bit more detail in different areas on both. So I mix it up. I use both. And it's just literally just listening to a track, fixing things here and there. Maybe it's a bit too loud in some elements. Maybe you hear a bum note somewhere that you didn't hear before because you perhaps didn't have the detail that you listened to through the headphones. And then you can try even other speakers after that. So once you've exported the audio, you might... I've got a friend of mine who always recommends this. He says, try it in your car and then see if you can take notes while you're in the car and see if you can hear anything that's wrong with the song whilst you're in the car.
As a passenger, I assume, or stationary.
Stationary.
Not where you're driving.
You can do either.
Taking notes on the motorway. Oh, that doesn't sound right. Crash.
And it's just to hear how the speakers respond. Yeah. So that's just kind of part of mixing, I guess. I mean, as I say, I'm an enthusiast, as we always say on the show. Enthusiast. I'm by no means an expert, but I've been trying to learn quite a bit. I've been mixing a bit of audio, and this stuff does help, as far as I can tell. Anyway, could all be rubbish. Who knows?
And I'm not even an enthusiast when it comes to music, but I'm a technology enthusiast, and I can't help myself. So I think what we're hearing is an ironic choice of phrase there, but what we're hearing is that you, I guess, an audio purist, you're looking for a certain output, a certain quality to serve your purpose, your sort of, I guess, more specialist need, which is the editing and the creation of music. Whereas, I guess, for me, it's more motivated by the convenience and the features and the software. I was going to share just my last sort of generic set of headphones, if you like, before my final two pairs, which are a bit more specialist. So the only other pair that I've got in my set, and these are probably the scruffiest looking now, they got a good amount of use back in the day, are these Bose Quiet Comfort headphones. They're wireless, again, noise cancelling. First time I'd ever experienced noise cancelling was with these, and it blew my mind. Because with these, you could put them on and then you'd flip the little switch, and then it would, you could use them without the noise cancelling, just as a wired pair of headphones. But as soon as you engage that, of course, all the audio, the outside audio just disappears, and it's the strangest feeling. Whereas with the Apple ones, they're kind of on and they're powered on already, so it's already happened.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. I had these a good few years ago now. They're probably 5 or 6 years old at this point, maybe 5 years old. They were, again, pre-AirPods. Really good headphones, and they do work very well still today. They're showing their age a little bit just because the rubber surround on the ears is sort of degraded, but you can swap those out and buy new ones. They still work. I've used them an awful lot. I still very much like them. Probably didn't really need the AirPods Pro Max, to be brutally honest. These are probably perfectly good. And ironically, these were in my bag the day I bought those AirPod Pro Max, which just shows you how stupid I am when it comes to buying technology. Yeah. But I was suckered into the Apple world. These are perfectly comfortable, really good headphones, and they are probably a good couple £100 cheaper than the AirPods Pro Max.
We didn't touch on price with the Pro Max, but they are very expensive.
Let's not talk about it. So the AirPods Pro Max is circa 500.
Yeah,
which
500.
Is way too much to spend on a pair of headphones, if I'm being completely honest. And
for comparison,
do I have the skills to sort of benefit from the difference? No, not at all.
The Sonys that I mentioned before, the Sony XM4s, they are $250.
Yeah, I think these Quiet Comfort at the time were around the 300 mark.
Yeah.
The AirPods Pro are sort of 2 to 220, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. The Beats mixers were around the £120 mark.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's kind of got comfortable with these prices over time. If you'd have asked me 10 years ago, do you want a £500 pair of headphones? I've gone, don't be ridiculous. Who spends that on headphones? And even when they launched them, I went, don't be ridiculous. Who spends that on headphones? And then I fell for the usual Apple issue that I've got, and I ended up buying them. But I do think they're very expensive. I am a bit like my first Apple Watch. I'm really waiting for these to take off and for me to be sort of like really enthused about the purchase. I do still feel like they're a bit of a fashion kind of luxury accessory rather than providing me anything really materially different than my AirPods Pro do, which are, much more convenient to use. I guess I've got, 10-ish years worth of buying weird headphones and stuff. But like I said, no particular method. Often it's been, I have tried all the headphones on prior to buying them, with the exception of the AirPods Pro. I just trusted they were better than the AirPods. But yeah. The last two things I wanted to talk about in terms of my devices before
Sure.
we move on then were for these two. So I've got here, for those who are watching, and I'll describe for those listening, the PS5 Pulse 3D headphones.
The vibrating ones.
So I don't think they vibrate. It's 3D sound is what they're supposed to do.
Oh, really?
That's what it mean. That's what they mean by Pulse. Yeah. So it's supposed to give you like 3D sound. If they do vibrate, mine have never vibrated. But then they've been worn sparingly. They're really nice headphones. I'll be honest, I made mistakes when I bought my PS5. I think I've talked about this before. I bought the all digital edition, and with the £100 I saved, I bought these. What I should have done, to be honest, is bought the disc edition and not bother with the headphones.
Yeah.
Because I very rarely use them. They come with a dongle, which is crap. So they don't Bluetooth directly to the console. They use a dongle.
Right.
Which for proprietary tech just seems really weird. They're made by Sony. Why do they not connect directly to the console?
Yeah.
Why do I need to insert a dongle that sticks out of the front of my already ugly console to be able to use them? I don't understand. The other thing that they do, which is really annoying, which is why I don't use them as much from a streaming point of view, is that when you engage the headphones, it disables the speakers on the television. So you can't have the audio coming out of the TV and coming out of the headphones at once. And you might go, well, why would you want that, James? What a ridiculous thing to need. Well, if you're streaming, you can't capture the audio if it's not going out via the television, because it's the HDMI feed that goes through your PC for streaming that takes the audio with it. So therefore, when I put these on and want to use them to stream, I end up disabling the audio and therefore can't stream the game. So I either have to turn them off and use something else. So they don't get used a lot. Quality-wise, very good. All the usual stuff you'd expect from a gaming headset, built-in microphone, all that kind of stuff. I think they can be Bluetooth to other devices, but I'm never going to because I've got other headphones, as we've talked about.
Yeah.
So you could use them with your phone and stuff like that. I don't know.
That would be a fashion statement.
It'd be an interesting one, wouldn't it? I assume you can do that. Having said that, given that it needs a dongle, I could be completely wrong. And I'm looking for an option to sort of mess with the Bluetooth, and I can't see it. So I don't know. I might be actually wrong with that. You might not be able to. I know you can connect them via a wire. Maybe you can use them wired. I don't know. The other headphone that I wanted to talk
Interesting
about
that isn't actually, sorry, you just mentioned the proprietary stuff. One of the biggest complaints, I think, from those who have bought the Sony XM4s and any of the other Sony headphones, they don't connect to PlayStations and both Sony devices. Or I think you can connect it via Bluetooth, but not to the game audio.
Which I don't understand, because again,
Bizarre.
you can connect to most wired headphones through the bottom of the PlayStation controller, which has been a thing now for a couple of generations. But yeah, it's weird. So the other one then I've got in the mix, which are the Steel series. Don't know what the specific brand is. I'm looking around the device for the weird code. I don't know what it is. They're the Steel series anyway. They look like this for those watching. They are Xbox specific. There's a reason they need to be Xbox specific. To be able to connect to the Xbox, they have to have proprietary wireless technology, which Xbox uses for all of their wireless connections. That's the same for the controllers. But what I like about these, so I bought these. I still am probably play more on Xbox than I do on PlayStation, even though I fully admit PlayStation are destroying Xbox when it comes to this generation and last. But most of my friends still play Xbox. That's what I've got. But these headphones are brilliant. And the reason I really like them is that they can connect to two different devices at the same time. So because they've got proprietary Xbox wireless tech and standard Bluetooth, you can have them connected to your Xbox and to your phone or to your PC or whatever you like, and receive sound from both at the same time.
That's
so if you want to play your music off your phone and at the same time play your favourite game, you can do that. I used it for streaming because it meant that I could have my PC audio piped into here, so I could hear notifications in the chat, listen to some background music that the stream might be playing along to, and then also hear my game chat. More recently, I've started using them wired because I keep forgetting to charge them, and in a wired format, I use them with the PC, and I pipe all the audio through the PC and into these. But these were the headphones that I bought when I first experienced footsteps in a shooter, or 3D sound, and I remember going, "Oh my god, that's amazing!" And it's genuinely a competitive advantage or disadvantage if you don't own a pair. When you're playing these games and you don't realise till you have them, the advantage that it gives you when you're playing these kind of first-person shooters, or even things like PUBG or Fortnite. Yeah. So these are probably maybe second to the AirPods Pro, the most used headphones in this pile that I've gone through. Because I use them for gaming, I use them for streaming. And because I use them for streaming, I also now use them on the PS5 and the Switch because everything goes through my PC.
Oh, you can use it on the PS5 then?
Well, only because all the audio is piped through the PC as part of the Elgato streaming setup, which we covered in a previous episode.
We did.
So, that's the only reason. I'm guessing could I Bluetooth them? Probably not if you're saying that your Sony headset can't be Bluetoothed. I think
it's either that they can't get the audio through, or it's the microphone doesn't work, or there was definitely some limitation, which I think the community thought was very bizarre because they're both made by Sony.
I'll tell you another weird thing about these Sony ones, which really annoyed me. So and bear in mind they're proprietary, again, I was playing Astrobot's Playroom, which is the kind of like launch game that came on the PlayStation that showed you how the controls worked and the haptic triggers and blah, blah, blah. And there's certain bits in that game where you have to blow into the mic that's on. So the PS5 controller's got a mic and a speaker that independently plays sound specific to whatever is in your hand, separate from the screen. So you can have two different audio paths. So the stupid thing with these headsets is when you put them on and you turn them on, obviously the microphone in this becomes active, and therefore the microphone in the controller becomes deactivated. It's not active anymore. So when the game says blow into the microphone to blow Astro across this level or whatever, I'm frantically blowing into this controller and it's doing absolutely nothing. Because, of course, the controller is no longer the microphone source, it's moved to my headset.
Yeah.
But the console and the game weren't clever enough to recognize it and to tell me, that I'm basically blowing on a controller that's not listening. So it's silly things like that really annoyed me.
Yeah.
And it's Sony's device and it came out at launch. It's not like this was something that came after Astro's Playroom. It was all launched at the same time.
That does feel like a bit of an obvious thing that they could have fixed.
Little annoyances. So yeah, they don't get used a lot. In fact, they get used more now because of the PSVR 2. Because again, they're designed to play nice. They fit over the headset, and it all comes together quite nicely. You got to try it out. They work better with that. They get more use for that now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well,
that's my weird and wonderful headphone collection.
Conscious of time. I think the main thing I wanted to ask, just based on what we've chatted about and our preferences, I know you mentioned before as well that Bose were the Bose headphones that you got. It was the Beats ones that you got were the first headphones that didn't come with whatever phone or iPod that you were using at the time, outside of the market that you already had access to. Do you think? I guess the question I want to know is, AirPods, when they were first launched, really popularized Bluetooth headphones for the first time, and I think it arguably brought it to the mainstream and made it way more popular than perhaps any of the other brands that are out there. But what it also means is that the convenience of Apple users just getting AirPods over anything else on the market, because it works so seamlessly in the ecosystem. Do you think that there's an argument that people miss out on the other quality headphones that are out there? The Beats ones that you mentioned, that the separate from the ecosystem that you're already in. You looked at headphones on the market and the first ones you bought. Do you think there is benefit to looking outside of that? I know you're not keeping up at the moment with what is out there, but I think there could be an argument for it. I know, good to hear your take as someone who fully takes advantage of the Apple ecosystem.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm probably not, like I said, I'm not the person to answer that from a sort of musical perspective, because I don't really care for them. I bought the Beats, to be honest, because I was on a special holiday and I thought, I need some tech I don't have. A bit like the reason I bought my AirPod Mini recently, not AirPod Mini, HomePod Mini recently. And that kind of got me into trying different headsets. But I was more than comfortable to carry around my Apple EarPods, the wired ones, for quite a long time afterwards. They wouldn't necessarily end up in a bag. The EarPods would, and they'd get tangled up and become a right mess. I think as I would put myself into absolutely sort of Joe average when it comes to headphones and consuming headphones, I would be more than comfortable with my AirPods. I mean, they're not cheap. Bear in mind, you're still asking someone who's not into headphones or into music specifically to shell out £150. I think that's about the price point for the starter AirPods, and more if you want the Pros. But I think it's the convenience of connecting them to your device. Even the pain of Bluetooth connectivity to a non-Apple device on an Apple phone, for example, is a number of clicks to get that working, isn't it? You have to know where to go into the settings, into Bluetooth, pair new device, put your headset into pairing mode, and that's a number of steps that for some people that aren't particularly tech savvy can be a little bit too much, and it's frustrating. And then when it doesn't work, it gets annoying. We've got iPads for the kids, and they've got non-standard headphones that are sort of cheap Bluetooth headphones, and they get frustrated with them all the time. Whereas when you get your new AirPods or your AirPods Max Pro or whatever one of those devices you choose, you just flick the little case open near the phone, and it goes, "Hey, do you want to pair me?" And it shows you a picture of the headset that it thinks it's found. You click OK, it pairs them, and then that device just works everywhere your Apple account goes. So from a pure convenience perspective, there really isn't any competition if you want just ease of use.
Yeah.
And of course they integrate throughout the OS, don't they? So you can get really convenient features like it'll tell you how much battery's left in the device. Now I know that does work on non-Apple headphones as well, but it's far more accurate. Like gives you individual earbuds. It tells you how much battery charge the case has got. It just feels like it's as you said, it's Apple controlling the narrative a little bit, isn't it? They're saying, look, use our headphones, they're the best, and they advertise the hell out of them. And you see so many people wearing them. It's so hard to avoid them. I think unless you're constrained from a budget point of view, which would force you, I guess, to look at alternatives, or you are a music enthusiast, I can see for a lot of people, AirPods just being the easy option.
Yeah. If you've got an iPhone, you should say.
Of course, yeah. If you've got an iPhone, I mean, they're absolutely no different to anything else. If you're using a Galaxy or whatever, there's no benefit. They are for the Apple user. But I would assume, and again, you tell me if I'm wrong because I've never experienced it, that there must be a Samsung equivalent that does something like it. I can't imagine that experience is completely unique to Apple. I would imagine that Samsung's own headphones or whatever do it similarly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They have their own ecosystem that they're trying to build, Samsung, with their earbuds as well. They've had a few different versions of them. Some of them meme-worthy over the years. Some of them, I think a couple of years ago, the Earbuds Pro looked like kidney beans, and so it became a bit of a meme online. But yeah, they've experimented with lots of different form factors. So I think in terms of consistency, they've not really stick to what Apple are doing, and they've also got lots of different variations of them, with various different price ranges. But yes, they have their own ecosystem version of the earbuds. But Samsung, like a lot of the other ones, they're a bit more open to using them with the devices. So I mean, we know that AirPods don't work with, I think they do work with Android devices and other devices, but on a purely Bluetooth level. And nothing more. So you're very limited in terms of features, whereas Samsung and I think Google have their own buds as well. They have proprietary apps, on all Android devices and on Apple as well. But
we've kind of covered this with the Google versus Android and other conversations we've had really in the past. These practices are they anti-consumer? I don't know. I think if you're in that ecosystem, do I care that an Android user doesn't get the best out of a pair of AirPods if they've got an alternative that works for them and they can choose from? If they really want the AirPods because they want the look and feel, then I guess you take that knowing you're not going to get all the fancy software stuff that you would expect, but then I'm using a different operating system. Why would that work? I don't know. I don't think it's like...
The difference is with this one, though, is that, you're not just looking at Apple and Android makers, manufacturers for audio. So there's just independent audio producing companies like Bose, as you said, and Beats, and others that...
Well, Beats are independent. Don't forget Beats are owned by Apple.
I keep forgetting. Beats were purchased by Apple, so they've got all the Apple, they got the Apple H1 chip in, which does that fancy. As you open the box, it tells you to connect it to your Apple devices and things like that. But even Beats, they connect a lot better to Android devices, and you get a lot more features than you would on the other ones. But I think the point is that the market is much more open, much wider than just the two Apple and Android players. There's lots out there, and arguably the ecosystem on Samsung and Google have similar flaws to Apple in that they're the obvious choice for people who have those devices, but potentially limiting options far beyond that they might not experience. But you rightly point out, it depends on the user. If they want something that's easy and convenient, then it makes the choice easier for them. But for anyone who's a bit more of an enthusiast when it comes to audio, perhaps has a bit more budget, is a bit more tech savvy, might want to experiment with something further afield than their existing ecosystem.
Well, I mean, you've described previously with your own mobile phone purchasing habits that you like to flip-flop between devices, and I guess your Sony purchase for your headphones has been beneficial because the experience with your headphones has not changed regardless of the phone or even the music streaming platform that you've moved between. The headphones have still been consistent and they've delivered what you wanted. So if you are someone that does like to change and move between ecosystems, then actually having a pair of headphones that is not tied to any one of those gives you, unique capabilities perhaps.
It's a very good
meets your
point.
need better. Whereas for me, I think it's highly unlikely I'm leaving the Apple ecosystem anytime soon. So for me, I see these headphones as an investment until I next decide to upgrade them, because they're going to work across all of my devices, and that's what I'm looking for. So I think it depends, doesn't it, on what you want from your headset and kind of what you're into. If you're really big into your music, as you've described, like the headphones you're wearing now would offer no appeal to me. And in fact, I'd probably put them on and go, "Oh, these don't sound very good." Because to me, they wouldn't. They're not meeting my need, which is, as a music simpleton, I just want them to sound good, and I don't want to understand or have to worry about how I make that happen.
Yeah,
I want to put them on and they sound good. That. And that, I guess it's each their own, isn't it? And your use case, needs to reflect what I guess you ultimately purchase.
True, very true. So I think that's all I wanted to say on the ecosystem, because I think it's something that we could probably chat about for ages. But I know we've done the whole, Apple and other ecosystems as well. So we'll leave that one there. Just to wrap up really quick, because we are up against time. I was going to go through a couple of the gimmicks I've seen with headphones that, arguably could take off as legitimate features, but arguably are just complete gimmicks.
I've got one in mind that I'm hoping is in your list. I think
well, you can tell me to include it if not. But it might well be the first one I select because I think it's hilarious. And it is the idea of kitten earphones, headphones.
Definitely not that one.
It's not that one. That's not one you're thinking of.
No.
So Razer, these are gaming headphones specifically, but there are kitten.
They're very transparent about who they're targeting with this, aren't they, in terms of their marketing page. So for those not watching on YouTube, right at the top of the page there, we've got a streamer girl, your sort of atypical female streamer with the headphones on, kind of looking over the shoulder with a pose.
I'm gonna have to refresh this page though, because I did see there was a blue version that was still targeted to male users as well. But
I'm definitely not saying that they can't be worn by men. I just think that
there you go.
Oh yes, those look great. And can the ears light up and they can be changed into different colours?
Yes. So these are called the Razer Kraken Kitty, and they are headphones, over-ear headphones, and they have cat ears at the top, and the cat ears have independent RGB that you can control.
Why, Robbie?
Why not? There you go.
Well, I mean, do you know what? Just because I wouldn't wear them doesn't mean they haven't got a home. I just think it's not adding anything, is it, to the music experience?
Well, it's definitely
and why
targeted
specifically
to
cat ears? Why not big dog ears, or I don't know, big larger horse-like ears? And what's the cat specific?
I have no
attraction?
idea. It's probably
I love the fact that as well, because a lot of Razer stuff, even the brand name Razer, it sounds like aggressive, and it's the Kraken, and then it's the Razer Kraken Kitty.
I know.
It doesn't really work, does it? The Razer Kraken Kitty.
It's probably a question you don't want to answer. Really, is you don't want to find the answer to, as why is kittens in particular on the headphones. But
all
anyway.
I can think of is Celebrity Big Brother and is it George Galloway, is that his name? With the whole I'll be the cat or something like that. There's a very disturbing YouTube video you need to go and watch if you don't remember that. Yeah,
well, you know way more about this than me. Then there you go.
No, Celebrity Big Brother. There was a politician who went in and he was doing some sort of role play weirdly on TV, not for a game or an activity, just because he was in casual conversation with a woman in there that he found attractive. He decided to pretend to be a cat, and he did this horribly cringeworthy cat impression where he licked and groomed himself and meowed and sat on her lap like a pussy cat.
Oh god, that's
so
horrible.
Is it, whenever I think about men being cats, specifically sort of like kitty cats, I always think of that horrible moment on Celebrity Big Brother.
Lovely.
But okay, I think that I would put that in 100% in the gimmick bucket.
Yes, I think I'd agree with you.
But
Okay,
a lot of fun.
a lot of fun streaming specifically. The next one. So this is a new format of headphones / earphones that I was going to mention before. We were talking about the earbuds and then over ears. This is called bone conduction. I don't know if you've worn bone conduction headphones before or tried
I haven't
them.
worn them. I have heard about them, and I know that they're quite popular with sort of cyclists, aren't they?
Sports generally. So cycling, swimming as well, and running is what they're advertising them as. Just general sports headphones. So they're basically, they look like a headband, like the plastic headbands that you might have, at the front as you push your hair back or something. They look at them, but they stick on the side of your head over your ears. They don't go in your ears at all. And the way that they work is they vibrate against some bones that are around your ears to simulate the sound. So they're a very strange concept. They don't actually, you can't actually hear them when you take them off very much, I don't think. But when they're on, because they're vibrating against the bones near your ears, that's how you hear the audio. As it gets basically goes straight into your brain.
I did look into them a few years ago because I forgot there are other headsets that I own. I've completely forgotten. There's a pair that I used about twice and I've never used since, and they were a Sony pair, and they're waterproof headphones.
Yes.
And I bought them specifically for swimming because, again, swimming is quite mundane. Mine weren't bone conductive ones, but I did look at them as an option when I was trying to price up the best ones to go with.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the problem with swimming headphones, at least when I bought them a couple of years back, and I doubt it's changed, is that you can't stream, you can't Bluetooth to your device because Bluetooth doesn't work in water.
Really?
So when you're underwater, apparently the Bluetooth doesn't work and you have to be too close to the phone. And of course, you have to keep the phone by the pool anyway if you were going to go swimming with it. But apparently that's a problem. So these headphones, you have to put the music onto the headphones and then be able to listen to it. Now, that seemed like a good idea. I thought that's not a problem. I've got music. Then I realised I don't really have any music that I could easily put onto the headphones. All my old digital libraries of slightly curiously acquired music have since gone. I've got CDs, so I had to get some old CDs out, rip them onto my PC to then transfer them onto these headphones, and it just became such a faff that I never use them.
Wow.
But I do remember buying those, and I've also got one other pair of novelty headphones that I can go and fetch if you want to while you're talking.
Quickly, yeah. We can always cut out
you carry on.
The gap in between.
Do the next one.
Okay.
Do whatever you had next, and
Okay.
I know I can see them.
Okay, yeah. Jay's on the move. Okay, so the next one. Bone conduction was one.
Jay's back.
Jay's back. That was quick.
That was quick.
Shall I move on to the next one? Okay.
Yeah,
So,
go for the next one.
The next one was, let me find it. So it's a rise in a feature that I can't see the reason for it yet, or what purpose it could have. But it's the idea of having a heart rate sensor that's in the earbuds or headphones.
So it's like, as in, it's tracking your heart rate from within your ear.
Yes. So obviously focusing on, again, fitness earbuds in particular.
Yeah.
They have heart rate sensors in your earphones so that it's tracking your heart rate through workouts as well. The reason I can't see the use for this is because I still think they're quite expensive, these headphones. And I'm thinking that anyone who's really into their exercise enough would probably have some kind of watch or heartbeat monitor, maybe a chest monitor instead, which would be cheaper. But
I wonder if the in-ear ones are more reliable or more accurate, because there's obviously a lot of like kind of what's the word I'm looking for? This kind of those sort of get out clauses with any of these watches that say, it's not 100% accurate. It's not as accurate as X machine. Don't rely 100% on what it's telling you. I wonder whether the in-ear one does a more accurate job. Is it getting a better read on your pulse from within your ear? Because I guess it uses light again, like the ones on your wrist.
yeah.
But did you get a better, more consistent connect? I don't know whether there's because they always say, don't they, like a chest-mounted heart rate monitor is still more reliable than a watch.
Yes.
I wonder whether the in-ear takes that reliability closer to the heart rate monitor you might wear on your chest.
Yeah, I watched a video about this the other day, though, with a guy who was comparing, a bunch of different watches, and really the margin is so small now between the wrist ones and the
again,
ones.
you've got to have a very sort of specific need for this, haven't you? Over and above your average workout.
But that's what I mean. Like, if you're really into it that much, you would buy some earbuds and then a chest monitor for working out.
They're more convenient than a chest monitor. I guess it's combining devices. I'm not trying to defend it. I don't really understand the use case myself, but I've never heard of them. So that's the first time I've ever heard of them. So
oh, really?
Yeah,
well, so I say that because
never heard of them.
It's rumored that Apple are going to be introducing them into their earbuds.
Well, then I'll have them soon.
I
I wouldn't buy a pair of earbuds because I want that feature, though. If they're in my headphones, then great, but I wouldn't go out and buy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't buy them for it.
It is a bit of an odd one. Also suggests that maybe Apple are going to start focusing on more fitness stuff with their earbuds because, as you rightly pointed out with the AirPods Pro, they're not really aimed for fitness, which is why they're a bit slippy. Don't stay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's probably some sort of third-party manufacturer that makes an over-ear thing I can slip them into if I really bother to look, but I haven't looked.
And then the last one I had, in terms of gimmicks, might not actually be a gimmick. I actually think it's quite a cool idea. But there's rumors that the next AirPods that Apple release will have hearing aid-like features. So it could start to amplify the audio around you so that people who are hard of hearing can start to hear a bit better if they're wearing AirPods. And I thought it was quite a cool feature. There is a few features in the accessibility already with AirPods, which I don't know if you're aware of. But, for example, you can put an AirPod, say, put it in front of a TV that's the other side of the room. Say you're sitting on the couch, and you can pump that audio through the other AirPod so you can hear what's on the TV, where the AirPod is. Now, it's a bit weird because you could also use that to spy on people in another room. So it's a bit funny how you actually use it. So it's an accessibility feature for that very purpose, but they might be leaning more into that.
There's probably some features around it though, because I do remember. I don't know if you're aware of this with the AirTags as well.
Yeah.
So we've got AirTags. We use some things like in our luggage and stuff like that. But my little girl went out with one of her friends from school, and we didn't know the friends, didn't know the mom, didn't know that this was she'd been invited out for like a birthday dinner with this girl that she knew from school, but we'd never met the parents. We'd never had a chance to kind of like understand who they were, where they lived, anything like that. So the first time, we're hearing of them is we've been asked to let our daughter out for several hours with them. And we were like, well, okay, we're comfortable with that, but let's just pop an AirTag in her bag just in case. So that if there's any problem, we don't know where she is or whatever, we can find her. And of course, I'd completely forgotten, thinking I've been super stealthy here, and that would just be a nice subtle way for me to track my daughter's whereabouts.
Yeah.
That the AirTag will report to somebody else if an AirTag is following them.
They get pinged.
So then, of course, the mom's phone starts going, hey, there's an AirTag present by you, and it's been following you for a while. Be aware of this AirTag. So it was like, it alerted her to the presence of my AirTag.
That's funny.
Didn't cause any problems. We just said, look, we're just safety first, and it was like with your children. We don't distrust you. We just want to make sure we know where she is. But I just completely forgot that it was going to tell her that it was there. So I wonder whether maybe something similar is present with those headphones if they're kind of too far apart or they're near a different iPhone for too long, whether it goes, hey, did you know this headphone's near you?
That's a good point. I never thought of that. That's a really good point.
That was like an anti-spying measure, wasn't it? They basically put into the device.
Yeah, and it's because it became so prevalent, just slipping a AirTag in someone's pocket or something.
Yeah.
But then it relies on them actually having an iPhone as well, which is an interesting one.
Well, they don't have to have the iPhone. Oh, they have to have the iPhone to get alerted.
Yeah. So if you slipped it, if you know they're an Android user,
yeah,
go right ahead. Apparently,
which we've established before means they're criminals, so you'd want to track them anyway. I'm joking. That's a joke from a previous episode. Before anyone castrates me in the comments.
But there you go. Hearing aid.
I like that though. It's a good idea. So I've got two you haven't touched on. So first of all, there are these.
Oh, okay.
So if you're not watching the video, I'm now looking like an absolute prat in the studio wearing sunglasses. So these are Bose again. These were a frivolous airport purchase. I've got to stop going anywhere that requires me to go through an airport.
Holiday. And near like the duty free.
Well, I wasn't. This was work. Both times were work.
Oh, right.
These are Bose, and basically they're sunglasses that you could have the lenses swapped out and put like prescription lenses and whatever else in. But in the arms, they've got speakers and they're Bluetooth. And what I really like about these, when I do wear them, and I'll be honest, I don't love the glasses. They're okay. They're not my favourite sunglasses.
Like a Wayfarer style.
I like to be able to sort of wear them, like on the beach or around the park with the kids, and I can put a bit of music on, so I can be chilling out to a bit of music, but I'm still very much present because it pipes the music in through small speakers, so it plays it into your ears, a bit like the headset on the audio on a Quest device, a Meta Quest. Done it again. So it's playing it out loud effectively, but it's so quiet and so directed at you that you can hear it quite well, but people around you won't really hear it unless you really turn it up. So I really like those. So those are my kind of gimmicky, personally owned options. I completely forgot about.
And I
the
think
other one which you didn't call up,
there are bone conduction versions of those glasses, headphones, things that I've seen around.
Yeah, there might well be now. Yeah, these are 4 years old, I want to say, at this point. The other ones that you didn't call out, which I was convinced were going to be in your list of gimmicky headset.
Bring it on.
Especially as I think Marcus Brownlee has recently reviewed them. Have you not seen the Dyson air purifying headphones?
I tried looking for it and I was like, is it Razer or is it?
No, it's Dyson.
It is Dyson. I haven't watched the video.
Have a quick look because I'd like to get into it. I'll just describe them while you're finding them. So these were announced during COVID, and I guess back then it seemed like more of a sensible thing to do, but it took them quite a long time to release them. They're now out in the wild. I think they're around £1,000. I might have that wrong. And basically they are kind of over-ear headphones that also have this. They look some sort of futuristic cyberpunk device. They have a mouth guard that comes from the earpiece all around and over your mouth, joining up on either side, which is effectively an air purifier and a mask. So it purifies the air around you while you're wearing them, as well as giving you these kind of big fancy over-ear headphones. Now, I've got no idea how good the audio quality is. I would imagine for the price they're charging, they need to be decent. And then you get this kind of mouthpiece that goes around your face. It looks a bit like, or it kind of covers your face a bit like a motorcycle helmet would, with the visor up, would cover your mouth but not your eyes. And it's a really weird look.
It is.
I can't see it taking off.
No.
Does it have a price on there? And is there any more detail we can call out? For those watching, you'll see them on screen on YouTube, but for those listening, there must be a price somewhere if you want to buy some. I'm sure Marcus Brownlee's video said there was circa £1,000 or $1,000.
$949. You're right.
Yeah, there you go. So they are literally Bluetooth headphones with an air purifying mask built into them.
What I don't understand is it doesn't seal around the face. It doesn't seal around the mouth. So I don't get how it, because you can still have there's still like gaps between the nose and the actual device itself. I don't understand. I don't understand.
I mean, they've spent a long time working on it. It does cover the mouth and nose, doesn't it? It might not.
Well, if you look at this, it doesn't look like it does.
I guess it's blocking. It's probably as good as a mask, though, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest. Most of the masks that most people wore during COVID were flimsy as hell. And I guess it's probably utilising some of the tech that's in their fans. So I've got a Dyson fan in my office now, and it's one of the hot and cold fans, but it also has an air purifier built in.
Yeah.
I'm asthmatic, so I don't desperately need it, but I just thought it was possibly a useful purchase that might make my life more comfortable. I turned it on. It turns out the air in my office is perfectly fine. Doesn't need purifying. Which, although, whenever I use anything like in my model setup, I use like a spray can, or I've had the 3D printer on, it tells me about it. It knows that's not good. And it tells me the levels are higher and it tries to purify the room.
Yeah.
But it's basically a portable version that straps to your face, isn't it?
Bizarre.
They announced it during COVID and it's taken a while to come out. I think that, unfortunately, the world has probably moved on a little bit and we're not as obsessed with masks as we were a couple of years ago. Better or worse. There's lots of arguments for and against that. But it just seems a bit strange to me.
So I did try to find this in my research, and I was convinced it was Razer, not
they announced something
Dyson.
similar, didn't they?
Well, Razer have a version of it, but it's not headphone based. It's just and the page is struggling to load, but you can see in this image for those watching on YouTube that it's just it's basically a fancy looking mask.
RGB lights, was it? I think as well.
Yeah, RGB lights to light up your face. Yeah. It's see through as well, so you can see people's mouth as they're speaking. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
I mean, I think if COVID hadn't gone away, both these devices probably would have been things we'd be talking about as
true,
sort of future things that everyone would just be wearing. But I think we're at that point now where whatever your view is on COVID and its presence and its threat, people just aren't wearing masks or wanting to. And I think the idea of making kind of tech fashion accessories using it has probably just fallen a bit flat. I'll be blown away if I see one of those Dyson headphones in public.
I'll be taking lots of photos.
I mean, to be fair, there's bound to be one on the tube at some point in London.
True.
Probably,
I mean, if
good reason to wear one on the tube as well.
I was going to say, if there's ever a place to do it, it is the tube.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought that for sure would be on your gimmick list as probably one of the most expensive gimmicky headphones that you could purchase.
True. There are some very expensive headphones in the audiophile space, though. That I
meant the gimmicky ones, but
yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's it for what we're chatting about today on headphones. And we chatted a bit about some of the gimmicks and the AirPods as well, and the ecosystem debate, as we always seem to do on the episodes. So that's it for today's episode. Thanks for hanging out with us, and don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, and subscribe on all good podcasting services. God, I can't speak today. So you don't miss an episode. And check us out on Twitch. We stream roughly 3 times a week at Jay and Robbie. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again for joining.